Hi guys, it is Dom here from Sounds Fit Magazine. Just had a wonderful chat with wrestling legend Raven from WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA Impact. He has been everywhere, he's done it all. We went deep on physical health, mental health, comic books, TV shows, and everything besides that. Really in-depth chat with an absolute legend of sports entertainment, and a great one for me, a bucket list one for me. So thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much for checking it out and spending time with me and Raven. Thank you so much. It's amazing to have your attention and your time. And thank you to Raven for his time as well. And thanks very much. We'll see you again really soon. Take it easy. All right. So I am sat with Raven. It's a great pleasure to sit with you today, man. How have you been? What have you been up to? What are you filling your days with at the moment? You've got the podcast obviously going very well. I know I see a lot of tweets and things coming up about the Raven Effect podcast, which has been going strong for many years now.
Yeah, it's like 5 years or 6 years. No, 4. When did we start? 2018, 2017? And
like,
I don't know.
I think it was 5 years ago, something like that, 6 years ago. But yeah, time passes, right? It's weird.
Yeah, it really does. And but yeah, I got my knee. I got one of my knees replaced, so I've been rehabbing that, and I'm going to get the other knee replaced as soon as I'm done rehabbing the first knee. And then next year I'm going to get I already had one shoulder replaced. So I'm going to get the other shoulder replaced. Wow. But here's the thing. So it sounds like it's man, he's in for a rough ride. But I didn't have a lot of injuries during my career. You know, I really didn't get a lot of injuries like they were like long term. Like I separated my shoulder once when I was doing indies, and the worst part was it was the day that the day I separated it was the day that my build, like, you know, when I finally had abs, like the one and only day I ever had abs in my life, like they were finally coming in.
Yeah.
And then I separated my shoulder, and then I never had abs again. And but yeah, I did that, and I herniated 3 discs in my lower back, so that was a problem. And I had to get a shoulder, a shoulder rotator cuff fixed. But other than that, I mean, you know, I've been going 30 years, you know, over 30 years now, and so that's not a lot of injuries. You know what I mean? It's not a lot of surgeries. So now, if I got to pay the price for them afterwards, career-wise, I'm doing okay with that. You know, it's the knee replacement was not anywhere near as bad as I thought it would be. I thought I was going to be just a mind fuck.
Yeah.
You know, and just I figured I'd be wearing crutches for a while and the whole. But no, you're walking the first day. You have to walk to get out of the hospital that day.
Yeah.
They do the surgery. They give you a walker. They go, all right, let's go walk. You're like, really? You're like, yeah. So I was like, sweet. So you walk on it. And then by 2.5 weeks, I was walking without a walker.
Oh,
and then, it's amazing with modern science, you know, and now like the other ones hurts way more. Like the one that I had the surgery on doesn't hurt at all. But the one that I didn't get the surgery on is still killing me. So it's funny that the knee that it didn't have the surgery is the one in pain, but it was actually in worse shape. It just hurt less than the other one, so that's why I got the other one first. Even though the non-surgery one is in worse shape. It's confusing.
Yeah. No, it's all right. Lots of body parts being replaced. Like the Terminator or something. You know, it's good.
Yeah, it's good. Frankenstein's monster with an abnormal brain.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So you're feeling pretty good. I like that you're able to reflect on that time. Like, obviously you are banged up. You have had some injuries, but you know, relatively pretty good. You look like you're in good shape. Are you feeling good?
Yeah. Surgery, I lost after the surgery, I had no appetite.
Right.
And so I lost 12, 13, 14 pounds. And I'm hoping to lose another 10 pounds when I get the other knee done. So, wow. And I've been keeping the weight off because I've been kind of I'm type 2 diabetic and I got a heart condition, so I got to watch it anyway. But somehow the weight started slipping on, and now I'm really happy that it came off, and it seems like it's staying off, knock wood.
Yeah. Congratulations, man. Like I say, it's obviously a cool time. I'd like to think that they supported you out of the. You mentioned you saying they just kind of made you walk straight away. I as someone in the UK, I'm like they just kind of they do operate on you and then they throw you out of the door. I'm assuming it's not quite like that. You did get looked after in the hospital, right? They didn't just throw you away.
No, they what happens is they dope you out. They gas you out. Except with me, they didn't gas me out. He goes, he's the anesthesiologist. I like to do it through the back, through the spinal cord, and inject you there with the anesthesia, and that way you're easy to wake up if there's a problem during the surgery. I'm like, I don't want to be woken up during the surgery. He's like, well, only if there's a problem.
Yeah, great.
So he goes, all right. He goes, now make a big hug, lean forward. I'm like, this is like a spinal tap. He's like, yeah, exactly. Except that we're injecting in instead of taking fluid out. And spinal taps aren't actually as painful as as people think, because I've had a couple of those. But but anyway, so I leaned forward, and that's the last thing I remember until waking up. And I'm back in they put me in the recovery room, and then and I thought the whole time the doctor never came to visit me. So, but he did. I just didn't remember it because of the medication, and because the stuff the anesthesia makes you forget, and so I'm like, man, so when I finally saw him for my first visit, like 3 weeks after, I'm like, I can't believe you didn't even come visit me. He go, you wish me well. I go, my dentist comes and wishes me good luck after I have a root canal. And he's like, I did. He goes, like, I see all my patients. I go, really? He goes, yeah, you just don't remember it. I'm like, oh, you bastard. Now I was all mad at you. Now I'm not mad. Now what do I do with this anger?
Fair enough. I mean, again.
Hey, wait, I got to interrupt for a sec. So you have the Darkness collection up there in your shelf?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did. I became a fan. I played the game over lockdown. Obviously, like, I'm working from home, but then I'm a PlayStation fan. I play in my spare time when I can, and I saw that there was a download of that, so I discovered the comics through the game.
Yeah, see, I never played the comic. I never played the games. I only read the comics.
Yeah, and then ever since I got into the Darkness, and then there's a Darkness Batman crossover, it's been good over the pandemic. It's great, man. It's fantastic. Like, a fascinating character. Like, I hadn't found any character myself, and we'll talk about. I did have some questions relating to comic books for you later, but I hadn't found a character since Spawn that I was like, this is awesome. Like, they were gonna do a movie for a while, but it didn't happen for the Darkness. I mean,
the Darkness would have been a great movie, especially like the original Darkness. When, like, I haven't read comics in about 10 years, like, other than a few here and there, but because at that point I had like 30,000 comics, because I buy, and it's so expensive a hobby, and you have no time to watch TV or movies or anything or read books, because the comics, they're all time. Even though it takes 5 minutes to read a comic, it's so time consuming because you read 20 of them at a time, or 10, you buy 20 of them a week because there's new ones coming out every week. And so finally when DC changed their universe, I was like, that's it, I'm done. I didn't like the way they changed it, so I figured it's a good time to quit. Yeah. But the Darkness, I liked the original when they had the Gremlin dudes who had who wore like funny hats and and had all like personalities. And then when they got rid of that, it was like, I don't know if they brought that back at all.
Yeah, they brought it back. I just became a huge fan of it. I thought it was really cool. I like the.
Did you read the early stuff that I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Mark Silvestri, I think.
Yeah, I went on online and checked a few of those out, and then kind of went back and bought like the big anthology just because I was really into it. But yeah, no, really interesting character, and same with Spawn as well. Spawn's like all time. I know they're going to remake that, I think, which is it's sacred.
Yeah, Spawn. I'm not a big Spawn fan, but I'm not a big Todd McFarlane fan either, though. So, but he got Todd McFarlane got such a bad rep, for when he was trying to buy the baseballs and whatever, and I think it hurt his comic really bad. You know what I mean? Like only, it turned a lot of people off, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's a nice resurgence for, like, I went back to the animated series. They had an animated series with Spawn. Like I say,
was that good? Was that good?
It was really like the old. It's like the 90s. Like, it's obviously old school. I think it was HBO.
But was the plot, like, that's the one thing I found out when when I went back to read the original comics, like the first early Spawn, it didn't really grab me plot wise.
Right,
The art
yeah.
was amazing, but the plot wise, I was like, eh.
Yeah, it's really dark. I mean, you can find them online now. Obviously, it's like all these, old ECW, old wrestling. You can find it somewhere if you need to. But yeah, the Spawn animated series was fantastic. I thought
it was pretty plot driven.
Yeah, it was very dark though. Like it's not something you could show. It's not something you would show your kids or whatever or anything like that. It was very like.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it. I'll have to watch it.
You can stream it pretty easily.
Yeah, I got HBO Max, so yeah.
Yeah,
so.
there you go. Yeah. And there's also like there's a nice little sort of renaissance for old school comics. They're doing a Netflix series for the Sandman as well.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that for a long time. Like everybody said, make a movie. I'm like, no, you got to make a series because the plot's just too long.
Yeah.
I mean, the plot's amazing. I mean, I love it. I love that he had a beginning, middle, and end planned out for it. Like. I keep wanting, like, who did that? Apparently, it was really good, but I never watched it. It was Babylon 5. Like the guy had a beginning, middle, and end, and he plotted the whole thing out, and he told his whole story. And I want to watch it, but it's so old that I'm just like, it's gonna be so old looking,
Yeah.
Like I tried to watch. I've been watching Picard.
Yes.
I'm the new Star Trek show.
Currently working on that. I'm actually going to a friend's house after this to get through that. So like, yeah.
So I tried to watch The Next Generation, which I didn't watch at the time.
Right.
And it's just so old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's hard to watch. And it's funny because it's plot driven, so it shouldn't be hard to watch. But it just comes across as so dated, even though like anything plot driven you should be able to watch like anytime. You know what I mean? Like I can watch old black and white movies, depending on what they are, but it all depends, like in a movie. I mean, I guess.
Yeah. Now,
or the TV show.
It depends. Again, it depends on your time as well. Obviously, like there's a lot of you can, it depends how much time you have. I think over the pandemic, I never collected anything or anything like that. And then over the pandemic, I was like, I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to read that comic. I've always wanted to collect that figure, whatever. And so it gave me the time to do it. But like now, I'm glad I did it then because now I have like no time. And I imagine.
Yeah, but that's good though. That's good because it caused, what happens is it's addictive. And I have a whole storage unit full of comic books and statues.
Yeah.
That I have in a basement full of statues because we moved recently.
Right.
That I have no place to put, nothing to do with. The only thing I can do with them is sell them, except that I have to sell them would be so, I'd have to either sell it as one giant package, and to get the kind of money I would want for it isn't worth it, the headache. So it's kind of like it's just taking up space and, and giving me a headache. So don't worry about being a collector because I'm telling you, it becomes when you're 50 years. I'm 57 now. I'll be 58 in a couple months. When I was collecting, I was so into it. I would go all over the place, and when I first started collecting like superhero statues and shit, they didn't have a whole lot. It wasn't like there was one for 5 for every character. You know what I mean? There was like one for some characters and none for others.
Yeah.
And so you had to hunt them down. And this is before the internet started. So you had to, go to comic book stores to find them.
Yeah.
So there was a hunt, there was a fun to it too. But once you start getting them, you start putting them on the shelves and then all of a sudden you have no shelf space.
Yeah.
So then what happens is, is a cautionary tale for people listening to this. What happens then is you buy new stuff and you take the old stuff and you put it in a box and you put it in the garage or you put it in the basement. And then eventually you fill the basement up because or if you're a kid, your mom says, all right, that's enough crap. You're done buying crap. And so you have to buy a storage unit now to put it in. And then you're just spending money on storage that you might as well give it away. You might as well give it away because what's going to happen is you're just going to be spending a couple $100 a month on a storage unit. And that's and all that money so I've had a storage unit probably for 10 years at least. At $200, it was $200 a month.
Yeah.
So times 12 months is $2,400. Times 10 years is $20,000.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
over time, it's just, and I should have just given it away, but I was like, I can't part with this. I got to sell it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I should have just given it to Goodwill at the time.
Yeah, you're planning on keeping it though right now, just because of the headache.
And I don't even have any kids, so it's like,
Yeah.
who am I going to give it to?
Yeah. Fair enough, man. I mean,
I'm not planning on having kids either. So so I have no one to. It's like I saved a bunch of my ring material, like my merch, like my ring merch, like wrestling stuff that that was important to me. And I never used to save it till I got married, and then and she was like, you got to save it, and I'm like, it's part of history. I was like, all right, and so I started collecting some odds and ends. And then eventually, we got divorced because we stayed best friends. And now we're gonna probably end up married again. And we live together, bought a new house together. And I was telling her the other day, I was like, you know what? I go, we're not having kids. You don't want kids. I don't want kids. I mean, I could consider them, but not at my age. But if I was 10 years younger, I'd consider it. But I don't have the inclination to give my kid the attention I would feel he needs.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel like I got the attention from my parents that I needed, and I don't want to do that to somebody else. So, and she's the same way. She just doesn't like people. She likes animals better than people, which is, I think, really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I can understand that, man. Absolutely. And
sorry, I'm rambling on, but anyway, long story short. So I'm like, why am I keeping this stuff? She's like, well, because I want the stuff. I go, yeah, but what are you going to do with it? If we're going to die, we plan on dying at the same time. Right. Because that way we don't have to worry. That's the plan. We go together because neither one of us wants to be without the other. That's so, so it's a lovely and it's pathetic.
Depends
but
you know what I mean. Man. Depends how you look at it.
I know.
It's a beautiful idea anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's great to hear you're in a good space, man. And thank you for the thoughts on collectibles, because again, it's a good lesson for me because I think, and for other people as well, because like it is what do you do with it? But then long term, maybe when you're 70 or 80, whatever, maybe you'll start reading The Darkness again. Who knows?
See, that's the thing I set aside a bunch of trade paperbacks that I know I want to read again someday.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's plenty of others that I want to read again someday. So yes, so that is a good reason, but it's still, like with the statues and stuff, it's just like, I'm like, I would say be really discriminating. My final word on the thing is be really discriminating on the statues and the action figures you buy, because action figures aren't that expensive, but statues get pricey. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And to have them just sitting in storage where nobody's enjoying them is just,
Yeah, no, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. For me, I'm quite lucky because my favorite comic book store is Newbury Comics, which is like a lot of hours flight away from me, and my hands are like constantly filled unless I'm sat down with two sticks. So in order for me to carry a statue or anything back, it would take a lot of work. So like I've got that nice little, like, you know what I mean? It has to be small. I have to be able to package it up.
You have cerebral palsy, I think you said?
Cerebral palsy, that's right.
So you have sticks. Do you ever try to walker? How's that? Is that?
Yeah, when I was younger, I did, and especially when I had the operations, I did, as well. But the sticks are kind of, again, I've grown up with them. I'm very much a style over substance as well, so they look cool. They're like jet black, but like I probably should have used the walker maybe a bit more often, but it didn't really suit me.
No, I just wondered if it's easier to walk with a walker.
It's interesting. It would offer me more support, man. Yeah, it would probably, doubtlessly. But and then as I get older, of course, like you know exactly what I mean. Like as I get older, like I've got to kind of watch my physical health, because obviously things are going to get. I may end up using a walker full time. I may end up back in a wheelchair. I was in like a wheelchair till I was 16 full time.
It's sad. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Don't worry about it, man. It's all about perspective, isn't it?
All right, fine. Fuck you then. Fuck you.
Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate the comments, man. Like I say, it's for me, just I've never known anything different. So I just kind of, and I'm lucky as well compared to a lot of other people.
Well, it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring.
Yeah. Well,
You are.
well, thank you, man. I mean, like I say, it's all about, you know, because there's a lot of people. Like I'm a big. I've been able to speak to and work with Paralympians, and of course, some of them are, you know, in a very different situation to me. I'm very lucky. I had a very
So
supportive.
you talked to two Olympians?
I've talked to different. I've talked
because you said you talked to a pair of Olympians.
Very nice. I love it. Very good. Very good. Before, well, rather than waffling on about stuff like that, I'm sure there's another conversation in there somewhere down the line. I have brought you here today to talk about the crossover between alternative music and wrestling.
Yeah, I've been. If you notice, I've been avoiding. I've been talking your ear off about everything but that. And,
It's okay.
And let me just say why.
Okay.
I don't listen to music really anymore.
That's all right. It's okay.
Okay. So, but no, I know. But let me just say. So, I feel I'm a bad person to like. I can discourse on old school music, but for the last 20 years, last 10 years, all I do is listen to podcasts.
That's all right. That's okay.
Good.
It's okay. There's a whole. There's the music stuff and there's the other strand of it as well. So I'm going to relate. My first question is around your character and sort of the impact of alternative music in the sort of 90s, early 2000s. Obviously, grunge was around. ECW seemed to me as a fan to be inspired by that. WCW as well. Your character, to me, there was a lot of, you know, it catered for the alternative community.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, was that intentional? Did you plan that, or was that just was it circumstantial of the time? It was a part of the time where you thought it was necessary to. I don't want to put words in your mouth here. It probably comes across like I am. Like, to what extent was the music a part of your character? Did you want to bring it in?
It's a huge part.
Okay.
Yeah, the way I came up with the character was I was sitting there talking to DDP one day. And he goes, and I was like, man, I was in WWF it was WWE at the time, I think, or I think they just became WWE, and they just had me as Johnny Polo, and then they took me off TV, which I never thought I was Johnny Polo anyway. That should have been Shane McMahon, you know what I mean? Because he's you know he's that character, you know, Greenwich, Connecticut. My vocal pattern, I sound like a thug, you know what I mean? I don't sound like somebody upper class, you know, rich guy. And so anyway, and then they took me off TV. I was doing the All American and with Gorilla Monsoon, and I was also producing associate producer Monday Night Raw. And but then eventually Vince he said, there's a disconnect between you and the Johnny Polo. I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get it either. It's not me. He goes, yeah, you're right. And he goes, we're going to just have you work behind the scenes. And I didn't get in this business to do this. And here I am, like, this is like 93. I was like 6 years in the business and I'm already being shuttled into the producer role and being groomed to be a booker on the booking committee. And I was like, I got to do something else. I mean, I got to get back in the ring. I got to quit. And I was talking to DDP and he said, I was saying, man, I go, I was bemoaning the fact that nobody hires chicken shit heels. Because I loved playing a chicken shit heel, you know, but nobody on the big stage was, you know, that WWE and WCW weren't hiring that kind of character. He goes, you know what you should do? He goes, you wear a leather jacket, you wear Doc Martens, you wear ripped up jeans. You should just be, he goes, I saw this movie Point Break the other day, and you look like one of those Red Hot Chili Pepper dudes. You know, you got tattoos. Yeah, I had long hair growing out. Like, this was when everybody was still wearing a mullet. You know, I was growing my hair out. And he's like, you ought to be like the Red Hot Chili Pepper dudes. And I was like, and that pushed me in a direction where I was like, all right, let me think about this. And I decided I had to be a badass because I didn't want to be a badass because everybody plays a badass. But I thought it was more interesting being a chicken shit, but they weren't hiring that. And I knew I had to change my character 180 degrees. And so I decided to go, you know, commit to my look that I wore. Like, it was funny. Like I'd wear what you consider Raven looking clothes. And then Vince would make me wear a suit and tie. Like he was trying to make me wear a suit and tie. And he had the HR lady helping me to try and, you know, groom me to be, you know, they had plans for me.
Right.
but I didn't know, I didn't want to be that, you know, like I could take my suit and tie off and I'd go right into Raven wear. And so I said, okay, so what can I wear to wrestling? And I go, let's see, ripped up jean shorts, need that. So I pulled them out of the closet, put them on, perfect.
Yeah.
Ripped up concert shirt, that's perfect. Sleeves cut off, show off my big arms at the time. Used to have big arms. And then I said, need some flannel because that's part of the zeitgeist, you know, flannel. Tied that around my waist, put wrestling sole on my Doc Martens.
Yeah.
And I have to say, my Doc Martens were the most uncomfortable shoes I've ever worn in my entire life. I know they're supposed to be the most comfortable, but the pair I bought was the most on my feet for whatever reason. I've never had a more uncomfortable shoe than the Doc Marten.
Yeah.
But I was too. I was like, I'm still wearing it. I don't care. And eventually I switched to high techs when my feet finally got so sick of wearing them. But and then I said a leather jacket, and I go. And then I thought, okay, I need to have variety, but I can't change a leather jacket. It's got to be like most people I tell, get a lot of ring jackets because you look like a star. Like Sting has so many ring jackets. He looks like a star because his wardrobe is so expansive. You know, same with Ric Flair. And I knew that's important, but I knew for my character that I had to stay with the leather jacket. So I went with the concert shirts, and I figured I'd just wear a different concert shirt every time. So that way I'm getting variety. But I'm also staying true to the character. Yeah. And then it was just a matter of just going through my closet and finding concert shirts. And then so I'm sitting there thinking, I go, I need a name. And I go, let me think. I go, I need a name for the character. I go, let's see. Okay, The Crow. The Crow was an interesting movie. I thought it captured part of the statement I was trying to make. You know, try to encapsulate all the misfits and all the people who didn't feel like they fit into society, and appeal to that group, and then turn on them. You know, but then be such a miserable fuck that even they didn't like me. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I feel Raven's like, he's a tortured poetic soul. He's anyway. So. And that was a lot of me, like on the surface, I'm very talkative and funny, but internally, that's how I was. I was very brooding on the inside, you know, the crying on the inside clown. And so then I go, okay, so what was the character's name in The Crow? I go, what was it? It was
Draven.
Yeah, it was Eric Draven.
Yeah,
Draven. I go, Eric Draven, Raven, quote the Raven nevermore. Bang. Just like that. I put the costume together I put the costume together and came up with the name and the catchphrase all in under like 5 minutes. Like it was just inspiration, just boom, boom, boom. Nice. And so then it was just a matter of tapping into the music, you know what I mean? Because that was part of the vibe, you know, of the character. And music was so important, you know, for the character. And so Come Out and Play just seemed like the perfect song because the lyrics fit, you know. Also, what I loved about it was like it had like the little intro, chicka 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 chick, and then it has the verbiage. You got to keep them separated, and then it kicks in hard, boom 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 boom. Yeah. And so it's like the chicka chicka chick. You're like, oh, Raven's coming out. You know, you think it is. And then you hear, got to keep them separated. You're like, yeah, it is Raven. And then the music kicks in, or boo, oh, that motherfucker, fuck him. Yeah. And the best compliments I ever had in my career were when people said, is he really that big of an asshole in real life? Like, that's the best compliment ever, because it means that the people really believe that you're what you're doing, you know?
Absolutely.
So anybody who like, that's why people, I think, on the sidebar, why people never want to be heels. They always want to be baby faces that are cheered. I mean, they always want to be heels that are cheered because they're afraid to be baby faces that might be booed, you know what I mean, if they don't get over enough. So they figure, so there's so many people that want to be that cheered heel, but that's just all you're doing is fucking your matchup and your, you know, I don't want to get off on a tangent because we're talking on music, but it's all good, yeah, man. But I was one of the few heels who legitimately loved being a heel. You know, it just fit my personality. It fit my childhood. It fit my sensibilities. You know, like being cheered felt disingenuous almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, because it was until I went to psychology, until I went and sat on a psychologist's couch for for a couple of years and worked through my issues. Yeah, it felt disingenuous. It felt like I don't deserve their praise. So I didn't want it anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, so music wise, so I just wore concert shirts and music of bands I loved. You know what I mean? And then music was such a big part of it, and music was such a big part of ECW, the revolution, and they go hand in hand too. They were the first company to start using real music again. Like, because for years nobody used real music because they didn't want to pay the copyright fees. So they made in-house, and then plus making in-house music like WWE did, they would get all the royalty rights to it. So it made more sense.
Yeah, and then you had the offspring, and it became synonymous with your character. And I think that there's a real strength to that. We'll talk about legacy and your attitude to it in a minute. But like, do you feel like everything you wanted that character to be, again, as a fan, it feels like you created something that transcends time. People compare you. People, your name comes up against, X, Y, and Z character, your Sammy Callahan's or your Bray Wyatt's or whatever. It feels like to me as a fan, your character transcended that time. Do you feel like it did everything you wanted it to do? Was it everything that you wanted it to be?
It would have been if I would have made it to the top of WWE, but that was WWE. I had heat with McMahon, long story. And so I never really got what I felt was the push I deserved in that company. And so no, I didn't get to do everything I wanted, but what I did do, I felt the work I did in ECW will stand up against anybody's work, anytime, anywhere, ever. Whether it's work rate, whether it's psychology, whether it's matches, whether it's storyline especially, plot-driven, episodic television. Because that's what I got into wrestling for, was episodic, storytelling. I like seeing. That's why I loved living in Florida, because Florida Championship Wrestling, something would happen every week that would propel the storyline further and further. Whereas in WWE, they rarely did that. They rarely had any competitive, when I was a kid, they rarely had competitive matches. It was all squash matches. Your listeners probably know what that is. When they had a jobber come out and get beat up and just to put the name over. And then you had to go to the arena to see you had to pay to go to the arena to see the name versus another name, because they never fought each other, and then when Nitro and Raw came along, they had they started doing away with squash matches and had all competitive matches, or relatively competitive. And that's been the norm for ever since. But for the longest time, it wasn't.
Yeah. It's interesting though. I kind of want to challenge you a bit there, because I feel like, and again, this is, it may sound like I'm blowing smoke up your ass here, Raven, but I
love smoke up my ass. Love the smoke in the ass.
Let's look at it this way, right? So if you look at, you made the best of what you had from my mind as a kid watching it. You made the best of what you had in WWE. You were at the top of TNA and Impact, ECW as well, and the character, again, in terms of longevity, in terms of a character that people. I know wrestlers in the UK, and I know wrestlers in the US as people I've spoken to, but also as a fan that watch back on your promos and stuff. I feel like that's pretty, and we are going to talk about success, and I don't want to lead too much into that, but I feel like that's pretty cool, man. Like, if you look at, you didn't, get a WWE championship, but you had, you made the best of what you had there. I feel like that's pretty cool, personally.
No. I mean, I had to spend time on a psychologist's couch to be happy to accept the fact that my career was incredibly successful. But I felt like it wasn't a success because I didn't get the WWF title. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't used on. I didn't need the title, but being used on top in WWE. But if anybody else would have came to me and said, I've had this career, and it was the same career that I had, I would have said, man, that's so stupid. Why are you not satisfied? You should be more than satisfied. And but I held myself to a higher standard. to a much higher standard than I held everybody else. And I felt like, even though when I got into business, I thought if I tried and I'm not successful, I won't be a failure because I tried. That's all that matters, is to try. To me, that's all that matters. But then I hold myself to a different standard, which after spending time on a psychologist's couch, I learned not to hold myself to a different standard, because it's just arrogant, to be honest. It's just pretentious and arrogant to hold yourself to a higher standard. But it's easy to fall into that trap, though. It's just hard to get out of it.
Yeah, 100%. I can relate to that, and it's difficult when you achieve stuff and you're obviously in the limelight, to the level you were. I guess you do find yourself competing with people, or rather definitions of success, which I'll bring that one in now, actually, because it seems like the right time to bring it in. A lot of young people I work with as part of my day job, they look at characters like you on television, or you have your successful podcast, etc., and they go, oh, I'm never gonna, these are conversations I have had with people, I'm never gonna be like that, I'm never gonna be in East,
but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. So what is your attitude to succce, and how has that changed?
To me, that's okay if you're never going to be me or somebody else. I had to deal with that myself, because I wasn't, like I just said, I wasn't up here. I was up here for the number 3 promotion. I was here for the number 2 promotion. And then I was here for the number 1 promotion, and I felt I should have been up here for all 3 of them, and then TNA, I was up there again. So I'm grateful that TNA was even formed for this, not just because it's great for another place for everybody to work, but it gave me an opportunity to not end my career in WWE, which I didn't want to end, my career that way. I wanted to, be used better, and I was. But for people that say I'll never be that, you don't have to be that. Nobody has to be that. You have to be the best you. Be the best person that you can be. And like, I'm limited. If I was 4 inches taller, and I would have been 30 pounds heavier at the time, because I was considered one of the smallest guys in the business at 220 pounds. Yeah. And that's not nowadays. I'd be a big guy. You know what I mean? I'm 240, 241. I'd be considered a good sized guy now, but back then I was considered too small. You know what I mean? And so I had limitations built in, but the fact is you can only go, you can only go as far as your limitations will allow you, or as other, and then also you have to think about this, it's not just, you, there's also circumstances, like just because I felt like and a lot of people felt like I should have been used better in WWE. I part of it was I got heat with the office, and half of that was my own fault. So I have to blame myself for that, and I got to take responsibility for that. And half of it was they didn't like me. And so because they didn't like me, they didn't want to use me that way. Yeah. Part of the reason they didn't like me was my own fault. Part of it was just them not liking me and not liking the character. And because of that, you're limited again. You know what I mean? So there's always, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you find what you need, Yeah. To quote the Stones, and that's always been like, I haven't always got what I wanted, but I always got what I needed. And that's how you should look at life. You want to be content. You don't need, it's like buying the statues, you don't need to have 8 million statues, have a couple of favorites, you know what I mean? And don't waste your money on, crap, because ultimately money can be much better well spent. And to be honest, it's like people, I still find it amazing that people buy autographs. Like they buy autographs, and then what do? They go home, they put it in a drawer, and they stick it there, and then it sits in a drawer for 100 years. And then they show a friend or two, hey, look what I got, But really, it's just, it's kind of, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a waste of money. You know what I mean? It's like, especially when. So all I'm saying is be more prudent. Don't be like me. Don't just waste your money on extravagances. Don't. I don't know why I'm getting off on a tangent. No, I guess as I get older, I'm grateful that I have money. That I'm very well off, but it could have just as easily been the other way, that I wasn't well off, you know what I mean? And then I would be like, man, I wish I wouldn't have pissed away all that money, you know what I mean? And I didn't
Yeah.
even piss away a lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did piss away. I did piss away a lot, but I wouldn't call it pissing away. I spent it on stuff that I enjoyed, but I forget. What was the question?
No, we talk about success and definitions of success.
Oh yeah, success. Yeah. So the your success is what you make of yourself, you know. And there's always going to be, you're going to be limited by society. You're going to be limited by your own abilities, and you're going to be limited by situations. But if you go out and do the best you can do and be the best you can be, that's all anybody asks for. You know, that's what you can be proud of. Is, I've always said that I would rather have on my team, like if I was picking a team, you know, like if we had, you know, like, you know, sports in, like, you know, some kind of soccer game or a football game, and I picked a team and you picked a team, I would pick the guy who tries harder than the guy who's just flashy and the guy who's great with a bad attitude. I would rather have somebody who cares enough to try, and, you know, even if they're not as good. It's like that. That's why I like that Ted Lasso show.
I've not seen it, but I want to check it out.
Yeah, it's tremendous. Yeah.
The term legacy comes into this quite a lot with certain musicians and artists of different statures, and I look at what you were able to achieve again in terms of, you know, your championships and your you know, the fact you are still mentioned next to, you know, your X, Y, and Z stars of today, whatever. And I think that's pretty cool. But that's me putting my opinion on.
Well, I consider myself at a much higher place than maybe than I've been. Like, I think it's pretty well known that I could have been used better, and I think, but the bottom line is I'm happy with what I've done, because I did everything I could, short of blowing somebody, I guess. I did everything I could to, you know, to be the best I could be. You know, I mean, I made some mistakes, but everybody makes mistakes. You know, so, you know, I'm happy. I'm content. You know, I mean, I'm cool with my legacy, and I think it gets stronger as the years go by.
Yeah,
I don't think it gets weaker.
Yeah, I agree personally, but again, people have different attitudes to it, and I guess, you know, the question is, do you think about it? Do you think about the legacy of the Raven character, or does it just, are you content to let it take its own? You know,
I'm more than content to let it take its own course. I don't watch wrestling anymore.
Right.
For a couple of reasons. One is I'm a completist, which is why my 30,000 comics, because I had to read everything.
Yeah.
And which is why I had to stop. A little OCD behavior. But I'm a completist, so I'd have to watch every show. You know what I mean? If I watch wrestling, and I don't have the time or the inclination because I have too many other interests. The other thing is it breaks my heart because I never got to be the top guy in the top promotion. So when if I watch AEW or watch WWE, all it does is make me misty-eyed, I would say.
Right.
A little saddened that I didn't get to do what I felt like I could do. Like, I never felt like I had the best match I could have. You know, like,
right.
I've had some matches I consider classics, but I've never been in a position to have the match that my ability would allow me to have. I never had my best match. Let's just put it that way, you know, right. but I don't think about it because it's not part of my life anymore. You know, it's like, now I do indie shows. Well, you know, not with the surgeries, but, you know, when I'm done with them, I'll go back to doing indie shows again. And, but, you know, I'm content. I mean, I look at it, I try not to live in the past. I try to live in the current, in the now. And that's why I don't do a lot of stuff, because I just don't have the interest. Long story short is I'm content with my legacy. I wish I'd done a little bit more, but I'm more than happy with what I've done.
Yeah.
And I don't have any regrets. I'm sorry. I have a lot of regrets. I got a ton of regrets, but that's okay. It's okay to have regrets because we make mistakes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely, and I guess again, going from that, you know, and talking about, you know, the career that you were able to have, you know, away from wrestling. I know, you know, because obviously you changed a lot from Johnny Polo to Raven over your career. What about personally? What did you learn? Like, what were the biggest things you learned from the beginning of your career? How did you change and develop as a person from that time when you started out to where
I
you are
think
now?
I think everything I mentioned about the time I spent on a psychologist's couch,
Yeah.
learning to be okay with what I've done,
Mm,
learning to accept my limitations, my faults, you
mm,
know, stop because see, I was really egotistical most of my career because I was insecure, because
mm.
that's why anybody's egotistical, is because they're insecure. They don't feel like they're qualified. And even though I knew I was athletically, I still felt like I wasn't. And so I would try and brag to everyone. I didn't know this consciously. This is all subconscious. And I found out later when I was, from the psychologist.
Mm.
But I so I was egotistical because I would hope that by convincing you that I'm great, you would convince me that I'm great.
Right.
That was the whole psychology that I was unaware of, but that's what I was doing. So subconsciously, I was bragging to make sure you would think I was great, but all that does is make you annoyed or irritated, and pisses you off. Whereas, and it's like, as much as I wanted to have friends, I went and did everything in my power to avoid making them, because then I couldn't be disliked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which ended up making me disliked anyway. So it's like, you learn. Hopefully life's, it's a journey. Hopefully you learn along the way a bunch of lessons that pay off, and you can be content in your older age. And I'm very close to being completely content. I'm not 100% content. I'm like 75%. But that I think is the real goal.
Yeah.
Is success should be measured in contentment.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's an
that's
interesting way. I've never heard that as succinctly as that, actually. I wanted to fit a couple more music ones in, just
okay.
they quick fire ones. Okay, so favorite band of all time?
It changes every day, but it's all the biggies. The Who, Zeppelin. Um, it changes day by day. Like I said, I don't listen to music much anymore. So
Mm,
so it's like, what I love, my favorite genre probably of all time though is 70s black music,
cool.
soul and funk,
Yeah.
which I know they're really big in England. That soul and funk are really always have stayed popular in the England club scenes. But the that and the 70s. But I think everybody harkens back to the music they were when they were 10 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think when you get to when you finally stop listening to current music, which usually is around your late 30s, early 40s,
Yeah.
you stop listening to current music, and you go back to the stuff that you liked as a kid. And that's
Yeah.
why it's like now classic rock's considered like Guns N' Roses. I'm like, that's not classic rock. That's great rock. It's great music, but it's not classic rock. Classic rock is the 70s.
Yeah. 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 What about live? What about live band? Favorite band you ever saw live?
The worst band I ever saw, I can tell you that, was Queensryche. They were terrible.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Never saw them.
Uh, I love Neil. I saw so many concerts. I remember having ankle surgery, and I woke up halfway through the surgery. Like, the anesthesia didn't put me down enough because my alcoholism was
Right.
so high and my pill taking was so high that my liver was burning through the anesthesia. And halfway through the surgery, I sat up like the Undertaker, and I go, "Are we done yet? I got a concert to go to." And they're like, "No." And the anesthesiologist is like, "What the fuck?" Well, my roommate, the ECW doctor,
Mm.
he was a foot surgeon, so he's like, "Just gas him again." And they gassed me. I went back out, but as soon as the concert was over, they put me on crutches, and I went, "Oh, let's go." And went to see Neil Young, and that
Nice.
was
Oh,
great. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So nothing was going to stop me from seeing Neil Young.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely right. Okay, on to the fan questions. Quick fire. Your hobbies, things that drive you now was one question I got in, was things that motivate you these days, because I know you don't watch wrestling, but what makes you passionate? What gets your creative juices flowing these days?
TV and movies. I've always been, to me, I'd rather, I'm not a big book reader unless it's fiction. I mean, unless it's nonfiction. Like fiction, I don't like to read because you have to create the picture in your head what the writer's writing, and I would rather see it on screen. I don't want to, when I'm leisuring, I don't want to have to create the world in my head. I want to see the world exactly as somebody else describes it. So I only read nonfiction books, and that's usually about like aliens and stuff like that.
Right.
Which it's a whole nother topic for another time.
Yeah.
But movies and television, and like the show The Blacklist. Like, cool. What an amazing show,
Oh man.
Last night was the season finale, and I can't wait to I haven't got around to watching it yet.
That's awesome. One of my friends got on the soundtrack for that, and it was like it blew up. Cool. It blew up for them. It was great. Okay, so the next fan question was favorite TV show. Is that The Blacklist then?
Probably, it's one of my favorites. I love that show, Blind Spot. I love Person of Interest. The Magicians was one of the best series ever. The first season, it was like Harry Potter. If Harry Potter sodomized Narnia. Seriously, it's like if Harry Potter sodomized Narnia and turned heel and burned everybody to the ground. That's what it's like. Yeah. And the first season, and then the second season was but then the third and fourth are really good. That was one of my favorites. 24 was one of my favorite shows. Yeah. Alias, the first couple seasons until they jumped the shark trying to restart it sort of to get a bigger audience, you know what I mean? Because it was a mythology show,
Yeah. No, I remember enjoying that one for sure. Last comic book you really...
and 12 Monkeys, the TV series.
Oh, I didn't see the TV show, the movie.
The TV series blows it away.
Oh, cool.
It's about time travel, and there's always continuity errors in time travel shows.
Yeah.
They have stuff that they did in the first season that pays off in the fourth season.
Beautiful.
That they planned it. They planned stuff in the first. And when I rewatched it with Selena, when I rewatched it with her, I was like, oh my God, this is why they did that, and they did that, and I'm like, it was 12 Monkeys is one of the greatest series I've ever seen. It's just fantastic.
Amazing, man, amazing. Right, I'll squeeze the roundup questions in then. Last fan question was, obviously you don't watch wrestling now. What was the last character that you really enjoyed? The last wrestling character that you really got something from, that you really were interested in?
I don't know. It's been so long. I mean, I legitimately stopped watching. I stopped watching when the WWF Alliance happened.
Yeah.
When I was in WWE and they formed the Alliance, and then they used nobody but except they used RVD a little bit, but that was it. And basically they just squashed us out. Yeah. And it just broke my heart just to see all these talented individuals not being used well, myself included. And I just said, I don't want to watch this anymore. And I stopped watching, and I never jumped back on for the reasons I listed before,
Yeah, fair enough, man. Fair enough. And last question then. I appreciate you taking the extra time out for me today. Obviously you've got the Raven Effect podcast, but what is your
I started watching AEW when it first came on.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed with Cody Rhodes. I've been followed it for a while now, except when it first came on. Yeah. And but Cody it was like everybody was doing high spots, and Cody was taking his time and selling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not that everybody else wasn't selling, and not that he wasn't doing high spots, but he did stuff that nobody else was doing because of his dad. You know what I mean? He learned from his dad, one of the greatest geniuses in this business ever.
Yeah, back in WWE now as well. Yeah. Is Cody. Yeah, good time for Cody. Okay, to round up then, what is your message for the people that have supported you and will continue to do so, whether it's the Raven Effect podcast or anything else you have going on? What would you like to plug, and what would you like to say to those people that have got behind you and will keep getting behind you?
Fuck you. No, I'm kidding. No, keep living life, you know, first of all, thank you for being fans, you know, and keep living life, you know, and try to work on being content. If I'm giving advice, you know,
Yeah.
but if I'm not giving advice, you know, then who am I to listen to? You know, I'm just another ordinary schmuck on the street that had some talent and had some luck and was there at the right place in the right time. But if you want something, you have to go for it. And it doesn't matter if you're successful at it, because the only person who's a failure is the person who doesn't try.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough, man. Good message to leave on. And where would you like to send people? The Raven Effect podcast.
Send them straight to hell.
Oh, okay. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Well,
no, send them to the Raven Effect podcast. And the only thing I really do on social media is Twitter, and I really don't do that very much, but that's at the Raven Effect.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Raven, for spending the extra time with me. Really appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dom.